Welcome, Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. I am Aaron Doliosa, and this is An Immigrant's Life podcast. An Immigrant's Life on all the social media where you can reach us and you can see some of the contents that we post regarding the episode. And sometimes I post some personal stuff there, whatever I like sharing about my life. That's where you also can contact me if you or someone you know wants to come on the podcast. Just send us a message there and we will definitely reply. We can also be contacted through our email address. That's animmigrantslife@yahoo.com. Speaking of sharing personal life, this weekend has been an amazing weekend. It was a very busy weekend. I had my finals of our team, my house league team that I coach. We went to go and play for the finals. Unfortunately, we were 2 points away from winning it, and unfortunately, we lost. And that's okay because I was so proud of the boys. They really played hard, and I enjoyed it a lot. Also, another interesting thing that happened was where did I go with my kids? We went somewhere and we decided to go grab something to eat quick. And we went to this store, I think it's called Poulet Rouge. It's like a mix of Mediterranean food and whatever else. It's pretty good, I love it. And I've been there, but I don't usually order. Usually my wife orders for me. So I don't pay attention. And I was just in line with my kids and we're just talking and we paid, we ordered, whatever. And then you have to stand by the counter and you have to choose like the sauces and garnishes. And I was just whatever there. And so it was very busy. We were waiting. But it is what it is. It's a very famous store. So the person that was serving us finally said, okay, call our number and we're ready to go. Again, I don't know anything because I don't usually pay attention. I don't order. So the guy asked me, what sauce do I want? I was like, what sauce? What do you have? And out of nowhere, this white old lady just start jumping in the conversation between whatever we're doing, and she just gave me this attitude of like, oh, it's all here. And I was like, who are you? No one asked you. So I didn't like how she said it. So I went up to her and I said, yo. And then she was like, and then I just looked back to the person and she just like, don't yo me, blah, blah, blah. And it took so much from me not to react because I'm from the Philippines. We don't take those things. And fortunately, I was with my kids. And I said to myself, of course, as an man with an ego, I said, oh, I need to show these kids that I need to step up. But then I said, this is a great opportunity for me to show the kids that don't get into fights, silly fights. It's pointless. You don't know what that person's capable. Obviously, it's an older lady. I'm a man. I train every day. Obviously, I'm stronger than her, but that's not the point. I was so angry. Super, super angry. I was ready to go, Obviously, I'll never hit a woman, but, as a human being, I was really upset and angry. And it just made me realize that people have no idea who they're dealing with. What it made me think was that, oh, this is a person, she's a queen of the bunnies. And in the bunny world, she's the most toughest and the ruthless bunny in the kingdom. Not knowing that there are coyotes, there's wolves out there. And then these bunnies goes out in the world and face the coyotes and the bunnies. And you're but like, you're lucky. I'm not that crazy person. What if I was a different crazy person? She could have gotten hurt, you know? Which is funny enough, that week, there was a road rage situation that happened here close to my area. That this gentleman who was, if I could say gentleman, but he was driving a trailer truck, and another person who's a woman was driving a smaller type of delivery truck. I guess they got into it. They both got off their vehicles, and the guy knocked out the woman cold. So obviously the guy got arrested, and hopefully the woman got sent to the hospital, and I hope she's okay. But that just made me realize that people don't know what they're dealing with, you know? Like, people don't know these most immigrants, they're from a different culture. I'm not saying all of them are rough, but it's just people don't, people need to think because you don't know who you're dealing with, you know? But so yeah, I spent time with myself about that because I was full of rage and anger and whatever else. And one time, the next day, I was working out, and it just this came to me this peace, this understanding that I was so grateful for that lady because she allowed me, she gave me a great opportunity to show my kids that you don't need to get into fights. Who cares? No one wins. It's not a competition. I showed them that it's better to be patient, take the highway, if that makes sense. Take the higher ground and just walk away because you're not going to get anything from it, you know. So I'm really grateful for that lady. I hope she's okay. I hope she's happy. I hope she's healthy and with her family. And that's that. Anyways, that's enough for the long story. How about let's talk about this week's episode? Oh, before we talk about the episode, I just want to say that the audio of this episode was a little bit sketchy because the guest was in a public library and were some ladies that are yappers. But it doesn't take away from the beauty of the conversation and our guest's powerful message. So, excuse for that. I tried to clean it and I did my best. All right? Anyways, yeah, let's talk about this week's episode. This week's guest is a dedicated community organizer with Kasamahan Co. This individual is committed to mental health and cultural preservation. Even after moving to Hawaii, they continue speaking Ilocano to honor her heritage. Her journey reveals insights into native Hawaiian views on Filipinos, highlighting the importance of maintaining cultural and linguistic ties abroad. I'm sure you guys gonna enjoy this conversation with this amazing guest. So let's not waste more time. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Today's guest is a writer and a self-care coach. The main manang of Hawaii. Everyone, please welcome Chachie Abara.
Hi everyone!
Naimbag nga adlaw manang Chachie.
Naimbag daw kada kayo man.
And mahalo for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this podcast. This is a really amazing work. I feel like as Filipinos, a lot of our stories as immigrants doesn't really get shared as often. It's very much saturated with the Filipino Americans. We tend to forget that we are also immigrant first.
Yeah, I love that you said that. We'll get that later. But before we get in too deep, why don't you tell the Immigrant Nation where they can reach you or if you want to promote anything?
Yes, so you can actually reach me on my Instagram, personal Instagram at On Her Writings, where I promote a lot of mental health, wellness, and a lot of my cultural writings. My native tongue is in Ilocano, and I try my best to um, share a lot of my wisdoms and my thoughts in Ilocano, as also promoting other languages in the Philippines, such as Pangasinan, Cebuano. But I trying to learn a lot of the languages because my advocacy is using Philippine social linguistic in mental health and
Mm,
wellness.
that's amazing, man. Are you trying to learn the languages?
I'm trying to learn all of it. So I'm fluent in Ilocano, but I've been learning the other languages as well because I feel like in like the landscape, like not a lot of people can relate to like the standard like Filipino or psychology of like kapwa because there's a translated in different languages. So that's what I'm doing is like learning the different and studying the different behaviors of the Philippines.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You know, there's 100 plus languages, right? Or dialects. So
Yes.
it's going to take a while.
Yes. Yes.
But no, I mean, if you get the main ones, like the Ilocano, Tagalog, and the Waray and Cebuano, you're pretty much all right, you know? But are you a linguist or were you always being fond of language?
I've always been fond of languages. Actually, when I was studying in the University of Hawaii at Manua, I took the first class of the Filipino social linguistic by Professor Jason Pagba, and that's where I really like learned a lot about like the background of like the mother language, the MTB MLE policy, and like really trying to like learn for it.
Mm. That's amazing. That's probably one of my guilts is growing up in the Philippines and just learning Tagalog. I know you started a group. Is that part of the goal of the group?
So so back in 2020, that's when my passion project started. Of like, initially, I really wanted to learn more about like Filipinos in Hawaii, and me, I love reading books. But for me, I know that we are oral people, so I wanted to kind of like get to know the community through podcasts. So I was interviewing different folks from the community, getting to know their story, and trying to really like let the people from the diaspora know like who are Filipinos in Hawaii. Why do we choose to leave Hawaii? Why do we celebrate our culture when we're not in Hawaii? Like I will kind of it started from that, and then from there, 2 years later, I've really been connecting with a lot of Filipinos from like Canada, from New York, from anywhere else, because for me, I see the value of sharing our stories and having kind of like that third space, even if it's digitally, to promote our stories. So,
Mm. That's beautiful. I love that you know it's not because you're from Hawaii or you're from Houston or New York. We came from the same spot. So let's figure it
mhm.
out. The name of the group is Kasamahan Company.
Kasamahan ko.
Co. What's co means? Company, no?
Uh, company. But then I made it kind of like a long term like meaning where like kasama ko, like my
Mm.
companion. But I don't wanna take all the credit. I wanna give credit to my auntie or my fellow like I call her like Audie, my close friend. Megan Ramones actually helped me come up with the title. Kasamahan actually came from the organization that she was part of in UCSF, which is University of San Francisco. We were having conversation, and she gave me kind of like that idea, and I kind of went like, oh, that's actually really nice, and embodied that with. the
Mm.
entire title. Because originally the company was called Reclaiming My Filipinx Identity. But it was too long and also it was very controversial, and I wanted to make it very inclusive, very open for everyone to kind of like be a part of. So Kasamahan Co was born.
I like it better, Kasamahan Co. It sounds better. What are the activities and initiatives does the organization do?
So right now it's very much of a startup media. I allow folks invite to be a blog writer to
Mm.
write about their own experience as Filipinos in the diaspora. Um, that's part of it. Another part of it is the podcast that I do, where I interview different sectors of Filipinos in either higher ed, healthcare, medical profession. But that one I'm taking a little bit of a break to focus on like the mental health piece,
Mm.
which which obviously I want to kind of integrate later on. But right now, I'm also focusing on my own mental health journey. So right now, I'm also in the process of trying to onboard new people to kind of help build this collective, because I know that you can't do it alone. You have to allow others to come in and help you.
Of course, that's why it's called kasamahan. You need kasama.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Why do you advocate for better mental health?
I advocate for better mental health because, especially as Filipinos, we have gone through so much, and in that alone, we haven't really processed a lot of the things that has happened to us historically, being colonized by many different country. I believe that as people, if we want to move forward, we have to really take a look on like ourselves as a whole. And I have this analogy that I always say and kind of like use to help me is like us Filipinos are like onion. We have many layers of things that we have to always look at, always look back at. It's always not pretty, but sometimes we really have to embrace it because that's part of our history and that's part of the unlearning the process. So,
Mm. That's beautiful. I love that. I know you graduated from University of Hawaii as psychology and language literature.
yes, so I graduated in psychology and Philippine language literature in Ilocano.
But why is it important for you to learn it in a higher form, I guess?
Now that's really important question to ask because I feel like even now, like my family asked like, oh, why are you majoring in like Philippine language? Like you're already Filipino, that's enough. Like you're in technically quote unquote America, which again can go again. Hawaii is not part of the US, but you're in America, you can speak English, that's gonna help you. But along with listening to different mentors and being in certain conversations, like it's so important to really live and speak your own heritage language because that's who you are as a person. And if you want to pass it down to your to your children, if you choose to have children, it continues to kind of like embody that.
Yeah, I mean, I love speaking Tagalog. I don't speak it as much because I'm married with a Canadian woman. But when I'm at my with my family, I try to practice because it vanishes quick. And sometimes I'll be like talking and I'm trying hard to speak Tagalog, and then I'll remember and then I'll forget a word. I'm like, what is that word? I know that word. Where is that word? You know?
You have to practice it.
100%. Did you speak Ilocano back then?
I did. So when I moved from Hawaii, from the Philippines, I speak Ilocano. My parents was just like, it's okay for you to speak English because I was going to school, but I really was persistent. I'm like, no, I don't want to speak English to you guys. I want to keep speaking Ilocano.
Mm.
Even though when I was in the Philippines, I went to like a English speaking school. I learned how to speak English there. I still didn't speak any English here because I don't want to assimilate to the culture. I want to keep my heritage language.
Mm. And how old were you then?
I was 8 years old.
You're 8 years old and you're like, I'm Ilocana and that's what I'm going to speak.
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing. Because most of the kids,
Mhm.
they will be like, yeah, I'm going to assimilate. I'm going to try to learn their language. I was the same thing. Even though I was decent with English, but I was trying to assimilate because, quote unquote, it's easier, right? But I
Mhm.
love that you have that pride of the language that, no, no, dude, this is my dialect, this is my language. I'm going to practice this.
Even though like I didn't really fully like appreciate my own Filipino Ilocano identity until I went to college, until like I really like learned like my own history. That's when I really appreciated it. Because I would admit that like back then when I was little, like yes, I could speak the language, but I was still pretty much ashamed to show who I am, like to show like I'm Filipino, because there's still that kind of like wanting to belong, but at the same time, like I can still speak it, but I still have that shame inside of me.
When you went to school in Hawaii, in the school that you went to, was it like diverse school or was it majority, I guess, white?
It was very much diverse.
Mm.
So I remember in elementary school during recess, I think I heard one of my peers, they spoke in Filipino, and that's when like okay, I found someone who can speak, so I went to them. But that's when I realized like when I was trying to speak to them, they were trying to avoid me because I guess they want to assimilate, and I guess that's kind of where the negative experience came from. Like oh like do I have to speak like do I have to hide my own language because no one was proud of it back then, not as much as now, where people are less like, oh, you're Filipino, you're Filipino. Yes.
Mm. Yeah, like Filipino. And they'll be like, yeah, what's up? I love that. Do native Hawaiians view Filipino immigrants as strangers in the land? Because you guys are not, the colonizer, but you're not from Hawaii. But also, we're pretty much the same
Oh,
people.
that's a really good question. Because in all honesty, like as Filipino living on like a native land that's not ours, but we have so much similar in terms of historical. I would say that we see each other as like cousins, and we see each other as like family. I've been into spaces like Native Hawaiian spaces where they're very much like accepting and belonging, and like we're always trying to find ways to kind of like be in solidarity with each other in a sense where like solidarity as like listening to what they need and listening instead of like doing. So when I say that, it's even though like in Hawaii itself, like it's their land, like it's kind of unfortunate where you kind of see them as the minority, and like the other aspect, the other ethnic groups are more of the majority because of like that, right? The being because of like the situation of being priced out of their own land.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. All you have to do is like, hey, we have the same ancestors. Your people got on the boat and just went here. You came from the Philippines. Your search for belonging is unique because you're American, yet in Hawaii, some consider it distinct from mainland America, right? How do you reconcile these identities?
That's actually a really good question, because for me, I had this conversation with a lot of peers, a lot of older friends, and for me, that's the tug where I've been considering myself more as an Ilocano immigrant, but also being graceful to be like, in a sense of belonging, I still feel I don't belong in the Ilocano community because of just certain like um personalities not coming together. But for me, how I seek belonging is really how I'm able to just show up 100% authentically to the spaces that I'm in, and also like who is really there for me. Because as Filipinos, like we're not gonna 100% like align to the same thing. But for me, if I just show up 100% and whoever attracts to that energy, I stay with.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the word, authentic, right? It's what you're willing to offer and what can you do for them that people see through that. it doesn't matter if you're Hawaiian, if Filipino, or whatever you are. If you really mean it, that dude, we are in the same boat.
Yeah.
So you and me, hand to hand, let's get this thing done. You're from Lawag City, right?
Yes.
When was the last time you visited Lawag?
The last time I visited Lawag was 2019, and that was with to accompany my grandmother because she's very in the old age.
Mhm. Do you like Lawag?
I do. I want to go back actually because the last time that I came back, I that was when I didn't really embrace my culture. Now I want to come back to really embrace and do something, in terms of like giving back and like just learning it all over again in a fresh new lens.
Mm. How did you feel when you visit Lawag? Because you were from there, but
Yeah.
you're not really from there. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, like that visitor and native kind of landscape.
Yeah, you look like them, but you're not one of them, kind of deal. You know? How was
Like
it?
I was born there, but it's different. It felt like kind of like I felt like a foreigner,
Mm.
especially because like it's different as a younger Chachi, like seeing like things from like that landscape from that adult Chachi of just like, well, like everything is different. Like this is it still feels the same, but at the same time, like a lot of like the buildings, a lot of people, like a lot of them, like some of them are like migrating out already.
Yeah. How about cousin? I'm sure they welcome you.
Hmm.
Did you feel welcomed, or it's more of like you're a not a toy, but like you're like you're like, hey, this is my cousin from Hawaii. You know?
I felt that. Like there would be like some like childhood friend. I'm like, oh, where's my chocolate? Or where's my shoes? Or where's my or they would see something that I would wear and I'm just like, can I have that? I'm just like, what? So I try to like dress as though not flashy, but like just like casual because like that's not what I'm there for. I'm there for like to see you guys again.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. They'll know. They'll smell you.
Yeah, they yeah.
They'll look at you and like this girl is not from here. And you're like, yeah, I'm not from here. I know you blog. I read some of your stuff, which is excellent. One of my favorite one is the Filipino toxic positivity.
Yes.
Why did you write an article about Filipino toxic positivity?
I wrote that because that was something that I struggled as well because I feel like I've always been so joyous and optimistic and sometimes I question like is this too much sometimes but I have to see that okay I have to kind of see it in a boundary setting of like yes us Filipinos we're very joyful but at the same time that's how we cope with like our struggles. We
Mhm.
don't want to show people like we're always in distress but at the same time you really have to show parts of it so that you can tell others like yeah we're not 100% happy, we're not submissive, we can be happy and sad at the same time.
We're complex people, you know.
Mhm.
But when I read that article, it reminds me of the term sana all.
Yes.
Do you think that's a Filipino toxic positivity terminology?
You know, if I think about it, I think so.
Hmm. Explain.
Because whenever I hear like sana all like it's either said to where like when someone has something and then like a friend will just like oh sana all like my ganyan. But then if you come from like another perspective like oh sana all, but I'm glad that you earned that well.
Mhm.
But sometimes when people say sana all like oh like you're so lucky. I don't know if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
It does make sense because I just recently
Yeah.
had a conversation with a Filipino psychotherapist who's based here in Canada, and we talk about how I love that word. Because if somebody wants to know how Filipino humor is, how Filipino culture is, all I have to do is teach them the terminology. The moment you understand that word, the moment you understand our complex personality, because we're positive, we will celebrate you, but also we're gonna jab you on the side a little bit.
Yeah, there's like this people say like Filipinos are like two-sided coins, but at the same time, like we love uplifting people either way.
Yeah, we do. We love uplifting people, and and I always say that with my kids, and I will tell them that the strength and the weakness of our family is we're very close. I know, obviously, being Filipino, growing up in Hawaii, I'm sure you heard about the term tumatabaka. How was your relationship with this terminology? I love this terminology too because it's so terrible.
Yes, I know that really well because growing up, I've heard that, especially being said by like relatives, and like whenever I eat, like they're always like, "Oh, why are you not eating? Like you have little on your plate," and then later on, they're just like, "You do grab," and then they said like, "Oh my God, you're getting like tumatabaka," or like in since I'm a Ilocano here, like, "Oh, nakalukluk ka," and I'm just like, then why did you tell me to like grab more food then? I was like, that makes sense. But I just honestly like it's getting better. Like over the past years, where like I've come to accept it, and like you know, in that's their own opinion. I can only do so much. I can only focus on what I can focus on. So I'm like now I'm just like okay, I'm gonna let that comment slide. But because as Filipinos, like we're very family oriented and we don't wanna like there's this like terminology, maybe kind of talked about it with the psychotherapy, but like there's this term of like saving face, like we don't wanna like ruin the image of our family. So we try to like kind of like hush to the side because we don't wanna you don't wanna break that. But I think that's something that we need to work on as a community is like being able to address certain behaviors that are not welcome. And that's part of the healing aspect of like really getting to know your own identity. It's like, why did you say that? It's because maybe your mom or your dad or your Lord and Lola before they didn't have that coping mechanism. So like you're repeating that cycle, especially what you heard.
Yeah, it's also complicated because now, yes, it will be a comment to someone that, oh, you're gaining weight, right? But
Mhm.
back in the days, if you're actually chunky, people actually love that because they know that, oh, you're rich because you have food to eat. So like it changes. It changed to from being chunky is good because it means you have money to, oh, you're chunky, not so good. But also eat.
I think part of it also is what you see in like the Filipino like media, where a lot of the artists they're very like they're a lot of the people that are celebrated like they're very like thin, so that's what people kind of perceive like oh I have to be like them, but at the same time like just your body is perfect, your body is beautiful no matter what.
Yeah, you just have to have confidence. That's it. Confidence is the key. I don't care if
Yes,
you're like 300, 200, 100. You got to be confident because if you're not confident, but confident, not delusional.
yes, there's a difference. There's a difference.
Speaking of beauty standards in the Philippines and the Filipino culture, being in Hawaii, there's a lot of sun. And sun and our skin, they're buddies. It makes us bring this beautiful brown color on our skin. And Filipinos obsession with being white. Did you went through that trauma as well, or since being in Hawaii, that won't be a problem as much?
For me, not so much, but I had peers who did struggle of wanting to be white, with using a lot of the skin whitening soap. I actually had one individual who I interviewed on my podcast, and he kind of wrote a blog post about it. That especially in Hawaii, where there's a lot of East Asians, so a lot of them are like white skin, and I'm like, oh, I'm like really dark. I'm like Ilocano, and I'm really dark skin, like kind of shame. So there's that.
Yeah. And do you approach them regarding their view on themselves about being light skinned or being tanned, or you just accept them for who they are?
I would accept them for who they are, and also I would have like a conversation like, why do you feel that way? Like, is there a reason, or is there is there a reason why you feel not accepting of like what you look like on the outside?
Yeah. I growing up in the Philippines, I went through that too. Like even boys, go through that, which drive me nuts. I'm like, do you know that people there's this thing called tanning machine or tanning lotion? Like they are trying to be us. Why do you guys want to be them? It reminds me of that book of Dr. Seuss. I forgot the name, but it's like there's two groups of like they look like birds, and one group has stars, and then the other group does not have stars on their belly. And then the ones with the star in the belly, they're like, "Oh, we're cooler because we have stars. You guys are not cool." And then a monkey shows up and saying like, "Yo, I can give you guys stars." So, anyways, so the one with no stars start buying the star from the monkey, and in the end, it was like everyone has stars and no one feels special. Like they'll realize like, oh, you know what? We're all the same.
And when you were speaking, I remember a lot of like even like the white people or a lot of the Buddhists, some of them like go to tanning machine just to be ice. Some like it's like a funny contradiction.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of children book, I know you wrote a children book, a child Nasudi's surprising adventure. Tell us about this.
Yes, so funny. So this children's book I started. The idea came about in the pandemic again in 2021. I I told my professor like, oh, we should display our work, our Ilocano work on Instagram because a lot of people has been requesting to learn our Ilocano language and culture. So we had that. So I started a platform called Agado Dash Ilocano, with a couple like peers of mine would post the grammar, we would post word of the day, we would promote essentially like Ilocano culture on Instagram. And there was this conversation that we had like one of our like meetings. We're just like, we should make a book, like an ABC children's book. And then just so happened one of my other colleagues, his name is Mario, which is my translator for the book. We had that idea running and we were thinking about doing just an ABC, just a simple. But in the pandemic, I thought about my nieces and nephews a lot and how much they don't know their language as much, and also because that the story of Nasudi, I kind of developed it observing my nieces and nephew that who are always on their phones, on their iPad. So I created that story. It was first in English first, and then along the ways, like 2 years has passed. I gave the story to my my colleague to help me translate it in Ilocano. So he translated in Ilocano, got it back, gave it to my professor. My professor said, "Oh, have Manong, our other professor, look over it and check it." So it was flipped from English to Ilocano to English. Found an illustrator in New York, who I kind of connected in the pandemic. I supported her art business. Her name is Cassandra Balbas, and like we connected everything, all virtual, and that's where Nasudi's surprising adventure came along, or in Ilocano, di nakakaskas tao apada si Nasudi came about. So
Hmm. That's amazing, man. Are you still publishing the book? Is it still
yeah,
available?
yes, I'm still publishing the book. Right now I'm like in like limited copies because I've been working on like getting it to like our public libraries here in Hawaii. So that's where I am right now. So when it comes to like selling the book, I want to tell people that I'm opening it up for like pre-orders so that I can order uh another set, and that set can be for anyone who wants to learn the language, because I do on the back side of the book there's a glossary of all of the Ilocano words that we use. And if you're not familiar with how to speak the language, or hear it, because it's different when you're reading it and it's different when you hear it. So there is that option. Like my long term goal is not long. My short term goal is to kind of like have an audio book of it, because Ilocano is an oral language, so being able to say what is being like read, so it can also bring back memories for people who's like hasn't been hearing the language for a long time.
Yes, 100%. Like I said, if I have an opportunity to speak Tagalog, I try to speak Tagalog because it will vanish quick.
Mhm.
Do you practice it with your parents now, being Ilocano?
We speak it all the time.
That's awesome. Because how do they feel when when they learn that you're learning Tagalog? I mean, Ilocano.
At first, they were just like, they didn't really have an opinion at first. They're just like, oh, why are you learning Ilocano? Like, you're already here. Like, there's no use to speaking it. But there's come to a point where like they're very proud of me. Like they don't, because Filipino parents, like they don't say it. They just
Mm-hmm.
like they're really proud. So like they're really proud of the work that I do, and I can sense at times like they're very worried because I do so much work for the community, and sometimes they're just like, just focus on one thing.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said that Filipino parents, they don't really say when they're proud. That's actually a trauma response, most of it, because
Yeah.
we are mostly Christian Catholics, and in Catholic religion, no one's better than Jesus, right? So if you show some uh, confidence or like you're proud, no, 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 no. How could you be proud? You're not better than Jesus. So they were suppressed. The emotion was suppressed. You know, it's hard, but hopefully you're you're trying to teach your mom and dad to say I love you, or however you say it in Ilocano.
I attend ka.
Yeah, like how's it going? Are they being more vocal or they still like stoic?
They're being more vocal over the years, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Were they instrumental for you to be close to the culture, or were they always been, no, you need to assimilate, Chachi. This is not the way.
I think they've always been instrumental, especially because my dad was always involved in the Filipino community, but in the older generation. So it's so funny that like my pathway is like now I feel like I'm like the carbon copy of my dad. Like I'm the moral, or I'm the social butterfly. I'm so involved with like the younger generation. So like I think my parents is a pivotal part of my journey, even though I I want to bring them in sometime, but I know like with different political views, it's a lot different. But that's for another story to tell.
We're not getting into that. That's too murky.
Yes.
Um, how did they react when you decided to take psychology in college rather than being a nurse, like the typical Filipina route?
They were actually really supportive.
Mm.
I know when I graduated, they did tell me like you could have gone back to the Philippines to finish your college degree. There could it would have been more cheaper. So there was that option. And then at time to time my dad would tell me like, oh, do you want to go back to doing nursing? And I'm just like, no, I'm completely fine wherever I am. Um yeah, my parents luckily has been very supportive of me. Um I've always told them like I want to pursue my doctorate degree, and then my parents would be like, "Why do you have to pursue it? Like, just focus on getting a job. Just focus on like getting, um, just getting like focus on earning money, because it's hard if you don't have money." So there's always that question instead for me, that why do you have to pursue your higher education? And for me, my answer is always like, in order to do the things that I want to do for the community, and in order for the community to really value like what you say, unfortunately, like you have to have like a PhD for someone to think you're credible.
Yeah, you need credentials. You know,
Yeah.
you're not just gonna be like some guy in the corner, just like just spitting, knowledge or whatever. It helps that you have a document that shows like, hey, this person knows what they're saying, right? And it also adds perspective,
Mhm.
you know. Are you planning to be a therapist someday, or what's your plan with your?
My plan is I wanna pursue my doctorate in psychology. So my PhD and PsyD in in doing the work of research in Ilocano psychology, and to really providing that providing more research out there for our culture, to really destigmatizing the stigma and welcoming that conversation in the community, so that being able to pass it down to someone who do want to go into that work, because there's not a lot of like Filipino, let alone Ilocano psychologists who are born and raised in the Philippines. A lot of them do get trapped in of being a nurse, get trapped into certain fields that their parents want for them. So like I want to be able to open that doors that you can pursue any other degrees, as long as it what makes you happy, and also the practical side of things.
Mhm. What's the main stigma?
I think the stigma that continues to go around is the shame in asking for help, the shame of talking about mental health, talking about your feelings, because there's always that kind of like thought of that you're bringing your family's name down. Like you're supposed to just talk it out with your family, but it's also hard because in Filipino families, you don't want to say anything that's against what, or not against, but like you can always go to your family at times. You have to seek other professional help in order for you to better as a as an overall being.
Hmm. How about you? How do you make sure that you have a healthy mental health? What do you do like for fun or anything that you do that you think, allows you to balance yourself?
So recently, I've always been seeking professional help. So I see a therapist once or twice a month, and I see a psychiatrist. She gives me a lot of like advice of like um, any skills and methods. And then on the fun side, I do a lot of writing. So I write for fun. I free journal, and I write on a lot of like intense emotion that sometimes like I can't say it out loud, but it just helps putting it down on paper. Being able to just host events like collective journal workshops, collective art workshops in the community. That's what I do like for fun. And recently I've been trying to do different hobbies. So just trying to like do something out of my comfort zone and allowing myself to just be consistently keeping myself also still at the same time, not doing too much, but also like how can I balance it?
Yeah. Journal workshop. What is that? Like you guys come together and then write about your feelings?
No, so journaling workshop is just like there's different prompts that we do. Recently last week, we did a journaling workshop, and it was about on grief. And we just had like different prompts. We would have them write about, and after that, like they would share out in that own in their own table. And just help them kind of like talk things out and process what they're currently thinking about,
Mm.
to know that they're not alone.
Yes, that's very important. That is very important to make someone feel that like, dude, I got you. I got you. Whatever that is, I got you.
Yes.
So you've been to the mainland, I'm sure a couple of times.
Yes.
Mhm. How does it feel to be Filipino from Hawaii, American, and going to the mainland?
A lot of culture shocks, definitely. Like I would say, I love going to the mainland because it's different, like a lot more, like there's a lot more to do. But being a Filipino, being an Ilocano in Hawaii, it's so different because the people here are very special, and you really feel that atmosphere. And I think it's part of like the land that you do stand on.
Mm. Yeah. I heard that there's more Ilocano Filipinos in Hawaii.
Yes, there's a lot more Ilocanos here.
Mm, okay. Also, before met you online, I know that in Hawaii they're teaching Ilocano in the public school. Is this correct?
Oh, the Filipino curriculum, is it that one?
Maybe, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
something
because
like
I
that.
know this coming fall they're going to be teaching the Filipino curriculum course in the high schools. Um, and the Ilocano part, the Ilocano, there's only one high school which is Waipahu and Farrington. They teach Ilocano classes for high
Mm.
school students. I think that's what it is.
Why do you think that's important? Because if you move to China, you're not gonna learn like Ilocano. Like you're gonna learn Chinese, dude.
I think it's important, especially because there's a lot of immigrants in Hawaii, and like a lot of the students, like when they come here for the first time, like that's what they want to hear. They want to feel like, oh, like they want to feel like they're accepted. They want to feel like they belong, and it's being in your adolescent years, like you already have like the problem of like fitting in.
Mhm. Yeah, I get that point. But
Yeah.
I look at it like Hawaii or Canada or the US. It's like a house. You want to live in my
Mm-hmm.
house? This is the language you're speaking. I mean, I don't mind you speaking whatever your dialect, but also learn our language.
Yeah, I see that too. Like in Hawaii also like there is this where you're also being taught how to speak Hawaiian. So there's also a course in some schools where they have Hawaiian language in high schools to take it.
Beautiful. Listen, Chachi,
Yes.
thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I mean, it's been such a fun conversation.
Yes, it has been. It's so different being the other side of the seat this time.
Really, I'm glad that you had fun. Before we close out, do you have any last remark or anything you impart with us or whatever you want to say?
Yes. So one thing I really want to emphasize, and for everyone listening out there, is if you are Ilocano, if you are Kapampangan, Tagalog, Waray, Pangasinan, speak your language, speak your heritage language, keep that language alive because it is through you that the language is continuing to be lived. Allow that breath of our ancestors to continue to live through you, through speaking it. And even if you don't have that resource to learn it, there's so much educational platforms that's been popping up on social media, especially for Kapampangan. Like account has been growing a lot. There's always so much resources to seek. If you need the resources, I can definitely point you to one. And I think Erin has my contact info. You can follow me on Instagram or you can follow my other my startup media, Kasamahan Co, and I can definitely point you to that direction. But yeah, never forget to wear your heritage proud.
Amen. Thank you. I love that. Anyways, Chachi, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Yes.
Have a great day.
Thank you. And let me know if there's anything that I need to do, like send you anything. Yeah.
For sure. Bye.
Bye.
Again, Chachi, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is Aaron Deliosa for An Immigrant's Life. I will see you guys later.